When we remember a time, we remember moments. A kaleidoscope of the sights, the sounds, the emotions that remind us of the way we were. Our world. It's about time. Here are Linda Ellerbee and Ray Gandolf.
For the next hour, think of your television set as a time machine.
It's a short haul tonight, barely more than a decade. But let's put some clippings into the scrapbook before we forget to remember.
Welcome to our world. It is the autumn of 1975. We are post-Vietnam, post-Watergate, post-Woodstock, and as a nation, we seem to be involved in a kind of inner struggle to find ourselves. Some symptoms of the struggle are political and racial violence and financial disaster. Some symptoms are raw humor, fantasy fears, and discos.
The time-honored ways with which Americans deal with their inner struggles are by getting angry, getting drunk, or seeing a psychiatrist. By the fall of 1975, we had added something new, talking about our troubles to each other, to ourselves, endlessly, meaninglessly, inventing a new language. Writing in New Times, R.D. Rawson coined the perfect word for all this, psychobabble. You could hear psychobabble if you could hear anything over the disco music at your loud neighborhood strobe-lit discotheque.
I'm into high energy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to be upfront.
I hear you.
You know, you're really striking some deep chords.
Yeah, mellow, real mellow.
You sure you're not an Aries? You look like a Scorpio. What's your sign, baby?
You know, I'm really getting my head together.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of in a weird space.
Well, I'm getting in touch with my feelings. Real heavy into meditation.
That's such an incredible trip. By the way, what is your mantra?
Well, 75 was a big year for a whole new set of cant phrases about human psychology. People are always talking about having their own space. We're not communicating.
The writer Tom Wolfe loathed one particular word particularly.
You know, to this day, I can't say the word relationship. I'll go way around Robin Hood's barn to avoid it. I'll say relation if I have to use the word, and I probably used relation incorrectly.
For Wolfe, another pet peeve was est, a kind of sensitivity training.
I met an agent, a Hollywood agent, whom I hadn't known before, and she began to tell me about her experience in an est seminar, and up to several hundred people. It would be in a banquet room. They wouldn't be allowed to leave except to go to the bathroom. This was like a marathon encounter session. And the trainer, who was the leader, was called a trainer. He was up on a dais, and he would tell the people who'd come to this seminar to take their fingers off the repress button. And he'd say, tell us what one thing you would most like to eliminate from your life. And they would go up to a microphone and say these things. And usually it was something like my wife, my husband, my homosexuality, my weakness, my inability to communicate. Well, this particular woman said that the worst thing and the thing she wanted to eliminate most of her life was hemorrhoids. And she meant it. So she started concentrating on her hemorrhoids. And she started moaning. And she said that as she noticed it, as she started moaning, other people around her, lying down on the floor on this hotel carpet, started picking up her moan. And then finally she started screaming. She said it was one of the most exhilarating experiences of her life. She had moved an entire crowd of people, hundreds of them, with her hemorrhoids. And that, I think, was the key to that, one of the keys to the psychology of that period, which was that people found ways to put themselves on stage.
The gurus took center stage. The Maharishi Mahesh Yogi adorned the cover of Time magazine the week of October 13. He had made one of his rare visits to the United States to sell his panacea, transcendental meditation. TM was a kind of non-chemical tranquilizer with no bad side effects. Many Americans found it an effective way to calm their inner stress. 2 books on meditation became bestsellers that fall.
Meanwhile, an even better seller was born one Saturday night, Live. It was the first television show by and for the first generation familiar enough with TV to stop criticizing and start mooning it. What NBC wanted was late-night variety to grab the young folks' money. What it got was raw, disposable stuff, like graffiti, like TV. Lorne Michaels produced NBC's Saturday Night.
The phrase that used to pop up a lot in the first year was, you can't do this on television. We didn't know what could and couldn't be done. I think that we were certainly playing with fire in a lot of things. I think that's what gave the show its energy.
Michael O'Donoghue, one of the writers that from its first opening minutes, 11:30 p.m., October 11th, also gave energy to this new show.
Well, I wrote the first sketch and also starred in it with John Belushi. In fact, I said the first lines ever on Saturday Night Live, a dubious distinction, but I did anyway. And it was, I was a professor. I remember the stage manager was doing a countdown of 30 seconds, 20, 15, 10, 9, 8, 7. And my little heart was going like a trip hammer. And there's like a funny few seconds that are just like frozen in time. And you're just like, hanging over the edge of that valley going.
Live, but under-budgeted, under 30, under-experienced in TV, and almost undercut by an unsound sound system.
From Saturday Night News headquarters, this is Weekend Update with Chevy Chase.
Somehow the show went on. It was a victory, but not a success.
Networks' grumblings at that time, they despised it. They wanted it off the air.
NBC's Saturday Night not only faced an inner struggle at NBC, it had to fight ABC's new show, the one the establishment bet on.
They announced their title. Ours was Saturday Night Live. Theirs was Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell. They announced in June. They were prime time, and they had Roone Arledge behind them. So we changed our title, or we were told to change our title, and did to NBC's Saturday Night.
And this is what ABC thought the young would think was funny.
Hello again, Howard. I'm your father. Pass the orange juice, please.
I got it, Del. I'm Mother Cosell, and here is your orange juice.
ABC might have had the right name. NBC had the right show. Cosell lost. If the critics weren't at first sure, the 18 to 34-year-old audience was. A cult sprang up as the tuned-out generation began to tune back in. Even stars from prime time began to come on the show to take part in the not ready for prime time play.
That's it.
While the not ready for prime time players became television stars.
Because the style of booking tended to be towards an audience that knew those people, whether it be Richard Pryor or Lily Tomlin or Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel or Rob Reiner and Penny Marshall, all of whom were in the first 6 or 7 shows. That audience then began to look in that place for their comedy.
Good evening, I'm Chevy Chase, here to keep you up on what's going down. Japan Emperor Hirohito met Mickey Mouse at Disneyland this week. The Emperor presented Mickey with a Hirohito wristwatch.
We really were just a bunch of kids putting on a show. And that came across, I mean, we were working round the clock, literally. I mean, we're obviously young enough to be able to do it, but just trying to make the show better each week. And that's all that mattered.
We're just a bunch of actors looking for a break, that's all. What do you want from us, Mr. Rob Reiner, Mr. Star? What did you expect? The Sting?
Maybe we struggled so hard to find out what we were that fall because we didn't like what we seemed to be. And if we turned up the volume on the disco, disguised our faces under strobe lights, and swaddled ourselves in gold chains, maybe nobody would notice that we were just an ordinary guy. Come back to the fall of 1975 to an ordinary girl who became a fugitive. Come back to Patty Hearst and Tanya.
Come back to America and its inner struggles in the fall of '75.
Rollo, where's the package?
I have no idea. And the Air Express Company has no idea either.
Hold it. If you'd used Federal Express, you wouldn't be having this problem. Come with me. Federal tracks your package with scanners from where it's picked up to where it's delivered. Giving you its exact status within 30 minutes or your money back.
Next time, send it Federal Express. Why fool around with anyone else?
I had no idea Federal did that. Absolutely no idea.
There's only one Formula One Grand Prix race run in this country. This year, the car that won it was powered by Renault. I mention this because we've just brought some of that competitive thinking to the street. Renault GTA. I consider it another Renault victory.
Now, colorful stain and tough polyurethane protection in one. Poly Shades by Minwax for a beautiful finish in half the time.
Minwax makes wood beautiful.
We asked 1,000 doctors if stranded on an island, which would they want? Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol, Advil, or Bayer? More doctors chose Bayer, nearly 2 to 1 over extra strength Tylenol. Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
Pronto, Mario, è pronto.
Cheese, glorious cheese.
Che bella mozzarella.
Cheese, glorious cheese.
Salami, ham, Swiss Swiss.
Whatever you order in your favorite restaurant, order it with real cheese.
Especialmente de cheddar.
It's cheese, marvelous cheese, fabulous cheese, glorious cheese.
Starting this Friday, Gung Ho and Dads are trading places.
I do not understand this new advertising campaign.
What's to understand? Gung Ho will begin at 9, 8 Central and Mountain.
How exciting!
Followed by Dads at 9:30, 8:30 Central and Mountain.
I'm sorry, would you do all that for me again? Whoa, slow down. I'm still reading the subtitles.
Just remember, Gung Ho first, then Dads.
Which is which again?
Tomorrow.
Welcome back to the fall of 1975. This is a mood ring. It was supposed to mirror your inner self. You put it on, and if it turns blue, as mine did, everything is cool. If it turns black, your inner self is struggling, and one of you is losing, which brings us to Patty Hearst.
In the fall of 1975, one of the most wanted fugitives from justice in American history was captured. She was Patricia Hearst, Patty, and had been until recently a thoroughly conventional 19-year-old college student, daughter of the rich and powerful publisher Randolph Hearst. When the change began a year and a half earlier, Patty Hearst was the victim, kidnapped from her apartment in Berkeley, California by 3 members of the Symbionese Liberation Army. Less than 3 months after her abduction, she had adopted the philosophy and lifestyle of her kidnappers, perhaps under duress, and had taken an alias. Patty Hearst, a.k.a. Tanya, was photographed brandishing a gun during a bank holdup in San Francisco. On May 17, 1974, more than 400 FBI agents and local police besieged a house in Los Angeles where Patty was believed to be hiding. They shot more than 5,000 rounds and were shot at. The house caught fire. 6 bodies, all members of the SLA, were recovered. Patty Hearst was not there. She and a fugitive couple, William and Emily Harris, stayed on the lam for another 16 months, evading a nationwide search, until the story finally ended where it had begun, in San Francisco.
What began and continued with a bang was to end with a whimper. On September 18th, the Harris couple was captured in San Francisco.
The Harrises were brought in, still defiant. Not much more than an hour later, police and FBI agents were directed to this neighborhood and this house.
At 2:25 p.m., we arrested Patty Hearst and Wendy Yoshimura at 625 Morse, M-O-R-S-E.
There were 3 automatic rifles, 2 shotguns, and several handguns in the house.
Inspector Tim Casey, San Francisco Police, had been on the Hearst case from the start.
Just when we got to the top of the porch, a little girl, Yoshimura, stood up and saw us. And of course, we had our revolvers in our hand. Tom says, "Get over here and open the door." And she came over to open the door, and I stepped in around them, and there was a little girl starting to go out of the kitchen.
And at that point, I thought, there's a gun. She's got a shotgun in this room, and, you know, they're very close, and if I go to the window, and then I thought, no, now, no shootout. And I walked out with my hands up.
It had come full circle, and the actual arrest was a piece of cake.
But the arrest was more than a simple bust. These handcuffs effectively marked the end of a thing called the Symbionese Liberation Army and the end of a year-and-a-half search for Patty Hearst. However, politically inspired violence in America in that autumn was far from over. 6 years after the murderous rampage of the Manson family, one of its members was still out to get the system, personified by President Gerald Ford. September 5th, Sacramento, California.
All of a sudden, a young woman dressed in a red flowing gown jumped at the president, lunged at him, and we're told she had a gun in her hand. A Secret Service.
The White House press office has now identified the woman as Lynn Ellis Fromm, 26 years old, of Sacramento, and they say that she is linked with the Charles Manson family.
Secret Service agent Larry Boondorf was the man who stopped her.
I noticed a hand coming up very low and had something in it.
The gun was about 2 feet from the president.
I saw a hand coming up behind several others in the front row, and obviously there was a gun in that hand.
We interrupt this program to bring you the following special report from ABC News.
This is the latest on the apparent attempt to fire a gun at President Ford.
He was right. It was the latest, but not the last. 3 weeks later, a rerun. On September 22nd, in another California town, San Francisco, another radical, another gun, the same president. Sarah Jane Moore's motives were confused. Her purpose was not.
I knew that that's the only shot I would have was a headshot. He came out, looked right at me, and after I fired the shot, he stopped. Cold, and I did have time for a second shot, had never planned for a second shot, had practiced and was psyched for one shot.
One shot might have done it if it hadn't been for a man who almost wasn't there. Vietnam veteran Oliver Semple just happened to be downtown.
I said, well, the guy's from Michigan. I've never seen him in person. I'll stick around to see him, you know, if I can see what he looks like. Everybody started pushing everybody. For some strange reason, I looked down, and I had seen Sarah Jane Moore go in her purse and pull a revolver. I yelled, "The bitch has got a gun," before I made the lunge for it, as the trigger was going off. I grabbed her, and about 10 agents and 20 policemen were on us all, like, just like that.
That's the one regret I have, that it was not successful.
President Ford survived assassination attempts by 2 disturbed Californians that fall, but he could not escape the wrath of New Yorkers. New York City was teetering toward bankruptcy, a victim, its critics said, of its own profligacy and mismanagement. It appealed to Washington for help, and it found a good deal of support in the rest of America. But the rest of America is also a little leery of New York City as an alien place, more like Paris or Tokyo than it is like Omaha or Detroit. So when the president refused to throw New Yorkers a lifeline that fall, the booing he got from the Big Apple and her allies was drowned out by the cheers and the horse laughs from out there.
Well, how many here would urge that the federal government bail out New York City?
Some politicians did not think it was a laughing matter.
Governor Hugh Carey of New York told Congress today that default by New York City would be an economic Pearl Harbor for the rest of the nation.
West German Chancellor Schmidt came here and said the collapse of the world's financial capital could push the whole world back into recession.
And we could precipitate a major economic disaster.
If New York City went under, so might other cities. So went the argument. President Ford was unmoved.
I am prepared to veto any bill that has as its purpose a federal bailout of New York City to prevent a default.
The president's attitude was immortalized by managing editor Bill Brink of the Daily News.
And we had exhausted apparently every kind of local option we thought we had. So the federal government seemed the only out. Mr. Ford said, in effect, you can go down the tubes as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to help you. And when I thought about a headline for the paper, and it was my responsibility as managing editor to put it on there, I came up with Drop Dead.
Mayor Abraham Beam did not relish playing the role of beggar.
Since this was Columbus Day, I said, Columbus and I had a lot in common. We both couldn't get financing in our own country.
The threat of default was the biggest, but not the only problem New York City faced that fall. Sanitation men took their good old time. Garbage piled up in the streets. Teachers went on strike. Firemen were demoralized after cost-saving layoffs. And there was even a brownout on Broadway. Musicals shut down when musicians went on strike. But after even the darkest of nights, there comes the dawn. New York City's dawn began that fall when the musicians settled and Broadway lit up again.
Make the camera come to you.
Isn't it great the strike is over?
Mayor Beam still had his problems, of course, but the Broadway maitre d's were as bubbly as their champagne. One musical shut down by the strike just a few weeks after it opened might have been strangled in its crib. But Chorus Line was a very healthy baby. Come back to the autumn of 1975 for terror at the movies and a thriller in Manila.
Come back to Our World and Inner Struggles in the fall of '75.
Dear Linda, hope you can make my concert tonight. Love, Michael.
Nothing less than finesse.
Tonight, your hair has to look its best, and it will. You use Finesse.
Feeling beautiful. Nothing less than beautiful. Nothing less than finesse.
Finesse Conditioner. The perfect conditioning whether your hair needs a little or a lot.
Nothing less than finesse.
The top quality cars and trucks on the road today.
You know, for my money, all the quality claims from here to Tokyo and back again can't stand up to 6 simple words. 5 years or 50,000 miles. That's the warranty you get when you buy any car or truck built by Chrysler. With some other car makers, after 2 or 3 years, it's so long, auf Wiedersehen or sayonara. Which makes you wonder, how much confidence do those guys really have in the quality they're talking about? At Chrysler, we've backed over 5 million engines, over 5 million powertrains, over 5 million car and truck bodies with 550 protection. If they fail or fall apart, we fall on our faces. But something is holding us up, quality. So the next time you hear somebody talking quality, take a look at his warranty, then take a look at ours. To me, it's simple. If you're looking for who builds them best, take a look at who backs them best.
X-Lax presents some gentle guarantees. The warm sun, the morning air, and now the peace of mind that comes from X-Lax. Taken at bedtime, it's guaranteed to work gently by 8 a.m. or your money back. X-Lax, guaranteed to work by 8 a.m.
On your next vacation, take a 3-, 4-, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world. 'Cause Carnival's got the fun.
In In a moment, our world continues with inner struggles in the fall of '75.
Take it to the hoop with America's favorite team. They're polishing up their best shots for their 60th anniversary season. And their court magic comes flying at you. The Harlem Globetrotters, live from Kansas City on ABC's Wide World of Sports, Saturday.